yes, I have been inspired by a very good number of women, and I cannot help but start with my own mom, who did not go to formal school, and yet she understood what it meant to espouse the type of values and stand solidly by her children. And I still remember growing up, there were moments in which, in the difficulty of going through school, my mom would do everything, even if it meant selling some of her best preserved, so to speak, precious, whether it is jewelry or things that women keep for themselves. I cannot celebrate women without first going to my mom. And then outside of that, if I go outside Ghana, one name I will mention certainly is Professor Wangari Maathai. I have been a witness of her struggle for the protection of the environment and her activism that mobilized so many women. At a very early stage, when the environment and climate change was not even on the global agenda, Wangari Maathai understood what it meant to preserve nature. I think of people like Professor Ifo Sutherland. I think of women like, in our current disposition, a lawyer, a politician, but making her mark, Honorable Hannah Tete. I cannot finish, but also make a personal reference to all the women in Wanep at the regional secretariat and beyond. That sometimes it is difficult, there are insecurities, there are uncertainties, and it comes sometimes with sacrifices. Another woman I must mention is the current executive director of the ARC Foundation.
I think that women constitute a great number of our societies, and if you look at the peace building continuum, you will understand the importance of the family, which is the smallest and the most minute scope of our society. And without women, the difference is always clear, that without women in our homes, the homes are not united. And that also translates to what happens at the community level. And if you look at each of the communities where we have had peaceful communities, you begin to understand the role that women play in those societies. And little wonder why always at the national level and at the state level, where you have the absence of women, you begin to notice the gap in policies, cohesion in development work, cohesion in peace and security. We cannot overlook the fact that when there are wars and when there are conflicts in West Africa, that more and more what you see are women who are not just running. You are seeing women who are running with their children, women who are running with the elderly ones, and women who continue to keep the families even in times of war. And that is why Wanep over time has been in the forefront of ensuring that gender-based violence is also reduced in times of war, but also in times of peace, that gender-based violence become part and parcel of peace negotiation processes.
Throughout history, women have always been pioneers of struggle against injustice, against inequality, and against discrimination. But for 2013 specifically, I was inspired by Hilary Bedema, a lawyer, a Ghanaian, and a human rights activist who assisted us in the development of a policy guideline for the participation of women in media discussion. So the woman was inspiring, and she led us, galvanize political parties and the media in Ghana. And the tool, the outcome of the document is very excellent, and we are planning to launch it in 2014. And this tool can be used globally, not only in Ghana.
And this woman is not most of the women that you might be hearing on radio or seeing on TV in Accra. It is a poor, enslaved Trokosi woman. Trokosi is a practice much more endemic in the southern part of Ghana, in the Volta region, and along the eastern coast of West Africa, where we have Benin and Togo, where young women are sent to shrine to atone for the sins of great-grandfathers or fathers or uncles. and they are enslaved in shrines, and they become the properties of the shrine owner or the priest. And this woman called Juliana Dobaji was enslaved in one of the shrines, and some of us worked hard to get her out of the shrine. And when she came out, what she did was, she didn't go to sleep, she didn't go to hide, but she also came out and spoke against the practice, which also led to the enactment of a law against the practice in Ghana. And she actually went on radio in the local areas, and even got the opportunity of going outside the country to actually advocate against the practice of Tukwusi in Ghana, and then for that matter, West Africa.
One person who has really inspired me, and I'm sure many others, both women and men, is my own mom, Mrs. Angel, and she's been a teacher for so many years. I could say roughly for about 30-40 years she's taught through the ranks, and she's made people value what education is, and mostly to do with women, but to the men as well. And even as of now that she is retired, I know of so many people who look up to her in terms of getting advice, in terms of what to do next after there are issues. And even my own self, I mean, at a point in time, she had to be the big push factor towards attaining certain levels of education.
What I want to say is that if women are pushed to higher education, then they would also ensure that their girl children also attain similar, and their children, the grandchildren, all of them will attain higher education.
For me, I think the International Women's Day is a very important day, looking at the role that women play in our lives as wives, as mothers, as sisters. And for me personally, one woman that is my late grandmother, she raised me, she was both my father and mother and everything, so she made me appreciate the significance of women in the lives of men, the lives of everybody. So for me, I think setting aside a day like this to appreciate women is very significant, and I doff my hat to all women in the world.
Let's take Liberia for example. After their war and then the country being a mess, we realized that a lady became the first African president in the West African country, which is, and up to now, since she took over, Liberia has been stable for some time. You wouldn't hear the wars as it was in the former regime. So there's somebody like Caleb Johnson, who's also one of the noble people in the society that I think people should emulate.
She is at Tema West, and she normally mobilizes the people, and I tell them what to do and what they should not do. That lady is stand as an assemblywoman. She's very zealous for her work, and I have done it in our community. She normally mobilizes the women, that it can help them in such a way that they too can start a little business.